sarcasm, where the essay trade, thought find out, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest, high impact producer, multi sector CEO, and cultural innovator driving global entertainment, brand expansion, and next gen media strategies. None other than Mr. Courtney Lemarco.
Thank you very much. That was a magnificent intro.
Yes, welcome on Abstract Mr. Courtney. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yes, I would be happy to. I am Courtney Lemarco. I am actually based in Tokyo right now as I'm expanding my companies throughout Asia. Um, I have been a television and film producer for about 7, 8 years. I had a very popular show on A&E called Hoarders. I retired from that show earlier this year, and now I'm focusing on building additional brands in fashion, consumer products, and other entertainment spaces. And we're producing several feature films. So, yeah, I'm very busy.
Busy means productive. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Courtney. Thank you. And today let's talk about building without a blueprint, scaling multiple companies from zero. Wow, I love this topic. So let's start
Mhm.
with the core metaphor. Building without a blueprint for you does represent a deliberately philosophy or necessity from having a zero access.
Well, for me, I think a lot of the things that I've done has been out of necessity. And I've just always had a drive ever since I was a child to try to figure things out, right? I was always into trying to figure out how computers work, how different things work. And, a lot of what I've created, a lot of what I've done in the business world has actually come from growing up in poverty and not having a lot of resources. So, when you grow up in a poor family, you don't have a lot of resources, you have to learn to be very resourceful and figure things out. I mean, you have to figure out how to eat. So I think, when you don't have a blueprint and you don't have anyone that's mapping the road out for you, you have to just be a very intrepid person and go out there and you have to fail a lot. You have to make a lot of mistakes, and you also have to learn from the mistakes that you see other people around you that they're making. Um, and then, just the most important thing for me was that I just had to keep going no matter what. Failure was not an option for me. So I just had to keep going in. And I think when it comes to finding success, a lot of people miss out on that just because they quit or they become intimidated by what they see are major problems and major obstacles. And we all worry about things, paying the next month's rent or paying your car payment or putting food on the table. We all worry about those things, but um, what I've learned is if you just keep going and you keep doing the best you can and you keep putting out the right type of energy, I think the universe has a certain tenacity to be able to provide for those who try to provide for themselves. So it's all about the energy and the vibrations that you're putting out. At least that's what I found in my personal experience.
Energy and vibration goes together, people. When you have no traditional blueprint, no VC playbook, no industry pedigree, what become your primary source of guidance or truth in those early chaotic days of a new venture?
Ooh, you have to bet on yourself. I don't think anyone who invests in themselves will ever lose. They might not end up where they want to be, when they want to be, and how they want to be. But I do believe that you are your best investment. No one's going to carry your torch better than you carrying your own torch. Um, and so, there were days where I had to scrounge through the couch to find enough change to go get food to eat. But even when I was living through those times, I continued to focus and learn and educate myself on what it is I wanted to do and follow my passion. It was rough. It was very rough. And, that led to some major opportunities that actually helped me build a very profitable and prosperous career. So I think a lot of people have to look within, and your friends can't help you. Your friends, they can give you encouragement from time to time. Your family can give you encouragement from time to time, but ultimately you really have to dig deep within yourself to be able to find a path to push forward.
Yes, dig in, people, dig in. The phrase zero access is powerful. Beyond funding, what is the most critical things you felt you had zero access to initially, and which is those absent ultimately become a hidden advantage?
Well, obviously I didn't have access to a lot of funding, but what I did have access to was technology. And I had access to the internet, and I had access to look things up and learn how things work and research how to form an LLC, how to set up business bank accounts. So what is the process to build your credit? What is the process to go out and secure loan financing? What do you need? All the information is really out there for you to find. I have friends, acquaintances that we grew up when we were teenagers. As we were growing up, some of them they chose to go down the road, the path of partying a lot, drinking a lot, and hanging out, and not really focusing. They used to make fun of me back then because I was always digging into computers and trying to learn how business works. The information was always readily available for anyone. It's just it only matters to the people who access it, and not only access it, but the people who put it to use. So I think the biggest thing, especially nowadays, I mean, we have access to AI, we have access to Chat GPT and multiple tools and things that can really help individuals take their initial idea and their dreams and bring them to light. So access to information is probably the biggest resource that anybody could ever have.
Yes, to thrive, people use those innovation to thrive. Without present plan, decision making has to be different. Can you describe a framework for making high stakes decision in the balance of clear data or precedent?
It's very interesting. I work in television and entertainment, so I have to make a lot of decisions um, that are based on viewer trends and habits, right? And so I saw a shift in a lot of people moving away from traditional television to mobile phones and things like that a long time before that even happened. Give you a perfect example. I had a friend of mine who had a video game company. He was making video games for Xbox and PlayStation. This is years ago. And then when the iPhone came out, I told him, I said, what would be amazing is if you would focus on making games for the phone. And his response to me was, no one's ever going to play video games on the phone.
Mhm.
Obviously, fast forward to today, everybody's on the phone. Needless to say, his company went out of business, and now he's working for another employer. But my point is, you have to be able to recognize these type of trends and see where things are going and see where technology. You have to put yourself in the future, so to speak, to be able to see where the trends are going, so you can make those decisions to make sure your company is very sustainable for the long term. And I also see that in television. You see, Netflix came out of nowhere and they put companies like Blockbuster out of business. Now, YouTube is actually the most watched streaming service on the planet. And so, the Oscars are now moving over to YouTube as opposed to being on ABC. So, I think, the data is that, like I said, the biggest thing is access to information and being able to understand these trends before they happen. And that
Mhm.
really is what has afforded me the ability to understand the high level decisions that I need to make that can make my company profitable and my clients profitable.
So, Mr. Courtney, do you think what's happening right now is good for us in the future?
I'm going to say it is good in the fact that progress is unstoppable. At some point, there were people who were upset because they invented the automobile, and everyone that had always pulled their buggy by horse was saying this is going to be horrible for the industry. Well, I don't know the last time you've seen a horse pulling a buggy, but change is inevitable. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. It's going to be good for those who understand that and who accept it and who can move with it. Those who resist it are obviously, if you don't evolve, you become extinct. So that's pretty much how I see things. And, we just have to evolve. And if we can evolve and go with the flow, it's going to be amazing for a lot of people. There's going to be so many new millionaires. Right now, somewhere there's a 10-year-old kid who's looking up at the sky, thinking, dreaming big, and he's sitting in his room with his computer thinking about things. And that kid is probably going to be a multi-billionaire because he's implementing things that a lot of folks are resisting right now. So it's going to be good for a lot of people.
Yes, let's embrace the new breakthrough for the 21st century. Scaling usually implies process and repeatability. How do you systemize and scale chaos itself? How do you build a team that thrives in an environment where the map is being drawn as you walk?
You know, um, I tend to keep a typically small team because that affords us the ability to be very agile. Um, for instance, I work for a lot of large television networks and they have multiple teams. One decision has to go through multiple processes for that decision to be made. And in the process of doing that, it takes forever for them. It's like steering a massive ship in the ocean. You have to prepare and get everybody ready for that ship. Well, I'm in a smaller speedboat. So I can be nimble, I can make decisions fast. One of the things that helps us is being able to not scale our company and our team to the point where we have so many processes. Because a lot of times when you have so many people involved in a process, it gets bogged down. You know the term too many chefs in the kitchen, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to keep too many chefs in the kitchen. We want to be able to stay nimble. And in today's environment and in today's economy, I'm able to run a global company with offices in multiple countries with a very small, unique team. And we're able to utilize technology and content management systems. I have teams in Los Angeles, Hong Kong, here in Japan, New York, Seattle, um, and then London, and through the use of technology and the ability to stay nimble, we're able to get things done relatively quick. Going back to your last question, we're able to make those high level decisions relatively fast. And, because everything's changing. You look at AI, if you look on social media, every week, some new social media models better than the one that just came out. And then like, it's just constantly improving. Um, so I think for us, being small and being nimble makes us very quick.
And we need to adapt, people. We need to adapt because if you will not adapt it, you will feel behind. For sure, you've done with this multiple times, Mr. Courtney. What are the first three scaffolding structures instinctively build in any new company, knowing that they support whatever unpredictable shape the business takes?
I think for for me, what I've done, I've always been very into organization and managing projects. So what's is makes it scalable and what helps me is to create certain systems whereby I can look at everything that's happening at a moment's notice and make changes to it. We have various technologies that we use within our company, and I think when you're able to have a really solid project management system, data management system, you can scale that to any business, and you can scale that to any company, whether you're small or large. We are very um, hype on data management and content management and communication. So that allows us to be able to do everything from, I have a real estate development company, I have a television and film production company. We have a fashion and a fashion brand that we have launched. We have multiple companies, but we all use the same systems to scale, to launch and scale each one of those entities. And so I think some that's very important. That's key. That's crucial. You know, to know your data, know what you're doing, know what you have, know what you don't have. And if you go into business not knowing what that is, you're going to be all over the place. You're going to be second guessing. You're going to be making things up as they come along, and that's not sustainable.
Mr. Courtney, as a high impact producer, multi sector CEO, what are your short term and long term goals?
You know, Short term, we are going to be doing some very exciting things here in Asia. I've worked in Hollywood for a long time, and I think there's a huge opportunity for more Asian content, which is why we came to Japan and which is why we're opening an office in Hong Kong. So I would like to be able to produce more and build more. We are actually working on a couple of projects with some of the large streamers. And long term, we eventually would we're in the process of developing the pathway to launching our own content network, which will encompass everything from advertising to production and to distribution and financing as well. So, you instead of complaining about the media, I figure the best bet is to become the media and help drive the narrative, help drive creatives, help bring more jobs to the community, and help put up more content and tell more stories that need to be told. I think that would be the long term goal.
To be the media. It's something else, Mr. Courtney, and looking forward for more success and good luck to all your
Thank you.
goals. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
I think um, out of anything that the big takeaway that I would give someone is to, as I said before, focus and invest in yourself. That's what you have to do. Just invest in yourself, even when your stomach is growling and you have very little food in the refrigerator. You have to keep going, no matter what.
Yes, people, keep going. Try and try and try until you succeed. It's a classic, but please do so. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey, Mr. Courtney? And thank you for that empowering advice.
Oh my goodness, I read so many books. It'd be really difficult for me to recommend a particular book. Um, and I also listen to a lot of podcasts. For me, when I read books, though, I read a lot of escapism because I'm so busy working and focusing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I could recommend some really great horror podcasts that I think you should get into.
Yes, please do so.
As a creative, I actually have one that I was just playing on my phone right before we started, and I do this thing where I try it like I work Monday through Friday, actually 7 days a week, and then when
Yes.
I come home and I want to stay in the creative world. So I listen to a lot of podcasts called Unexplained or Unexplained Encounters. I listen to one called The Spell. I listen to a lot of science podcasts with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm always learning. I like to learn about things in science and technology. So I'm always listening to things about the universe and space. I have a lot of books by Stephen Hawking. So for me, it's kind of like, I used to get into books about business and things like that, but I'm so deep into it that I could probably write a few myself. For me, when I want to really unwind, I like to read escapism. I like to take my mind to places where I can't physically go. And I think that kind of helps me balance out because I can easily become a workaholic. So I think that helps me balance out and that helps me stay in the creative lane, so to speak. I have to use both sides, the analytical and the creative side. So for me, when it comes to books and things like that, I tend to lean more on the creative.
Lean more. Lean more on the creative side. Well, thank you for that recommended podcast, Mr. Carney. Yeah, so what is the key lesson from failure in one company that become a non-negotiable rule for success in the next 10 years?
Well, there are no losses. There are just lessons. I failed many times. There's a lot of projects that I've tried to do that didn't work out well. And every time I come out of that with some knowledge that I didn't have before. So the only failure to me is if you quit. But if you the true failure is quitting. But if you don't reach the goal that you had intended to reach and you continue to move forward and you learn from the mistakes that you have made, that's not failure. That's just learning. That's lessons. That's life lessons. I mean, that's it. You have sometimes you touch the stove, you realize it's hot. Well, don't touch the stove again. Um, that's kind of how it works. And so, as long as you're gaining knowledge, are you really failing? I don't believe you are.
Mm, yes, definitely. So if you were to write a blueprint, a guide on how the navigate without one, what would be the title of chapter one and just core message?
Ooh, the title? That's a very good question. I would
Thank
probably
you.
just cut straight to the chase and just say, get it done. Um, if you want to break that into details, it's possible, but ultimately, just get it done, no matter what. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly what you want it, but it has to be done. As I said, I like escapism. I like to stay in the creative side, right? So I'm always creating things. I'm producing things, and when I finish a TV show or I finish a movie or I finish a project or something like that, even when it's released, I'm always looking at it thinking, oh, I could have just done this. Oh, I could have just taken that right there. Where in some ways I'm an artist, so I'm very sensitive about the things that I put out. Uh, so I could sit there and just go over it over and over again and try to create this perfect masterpiece, or I can just get it done and put it out and express myself and move on to the next. And I think it's more important to produce as a producer is just to keep producing no matter what. Sometimes you're going to have a hit, sometimes you're not going to have a hit. That's just the way it goes. But get it done. That would be it right there.
Yes, and Mr. Carney, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my Abstract Essay is already in fifth season, Abstract Poetry in second season, and my Book 101 review in fifth season too, Comedy 101 in third season, Food 101 in fifth season as well, Geography 101, Love Letters, Movie 101 review, Music 101 in fourth season, Science 101 and Sex 101 in its second season, and my baby podcast, Mental Health 101, Law 101, Bible Verses 101, and Entrepreneurship 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So finally, Mr. Courtney, for the listeners who feels they have a zero access but a burning idea, what is the one irrevocable first step you will tell to take tomorrow morning?
I'm going to say this, and this might sound very strange, but if you want access and you have an idea, what's worked for me, um, set up a professional profile on LinkedIn. And whether you like it or not is not what matters. Just do it. Because I set up a professional profile on LinkedIn and I sent one message to an individual, and that message turned into $40 million worth of revenue for my company. And so, if you want to, obviously I had to learn a lot throughout that process. But if you want to find opportunity, go to the place where there are people who have opportunities to give. That's it.
Mr. Courtney, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you
Thank you for having me.
please, yes, so can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your projects, or anything you want to promote on Abstract Essay?
Yeah, I think the best place to find me would probably be on Instagram. and that's Courtney Lemarco, right there on Instagram. Easy to find. So that would probably be the best way to reach me. Contact me, and if you want to work together, shoot me a DM.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Courtney Lemarco because if you support him, for sure, more and more and more empowering advocacy will rise. So, Mr. Courtney, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.